does not want to admit me because I'm Asian American. There's not much I can do about that because it's a part of me that I just can't get rid of.
I like to see when people of a different race is humble like this. Letting them know that they ain't white. Never gonna be white. The white know he ain't white. The Trump administration out here humbling other race so bad, I seen an Asian the other day walk around in the kimono at the mall and went back to their roots. It's your best bet. They got me damn near about to purchase a dashiki and a head wrap. Shit, I want to go back to my roots too. I saw a Latino lady with a sombrero on at Disneyland. You don't wear no sombrero at Disneyland. You're supposed to put the Mickey Mouse ear and shit on at Disneyland. Everybody going back to their roots. And honestly, with this administration, you got some white people don't even want the white privilege no more. Can I trade it in for some? The other day, I seen a white lady trying to trade her white privilege in at the dollar store for a bra and penny set. I said, girl, give me that damn privilege. What you doing with that? I'll take her privilege. I'll take her privilege. Black people tried to tell y'all a long time ago, but y'all ain't want to listen. Oh no, I hang around all white people. I'm good. Okay, so when Becky get in the club and you still standing outside in your kimono looking stupid, don't say I ain't warned you. It's a lesson in history. You ain't white unless you white. Even if you got a little drop of something else in you, you still that little drop of something else. If the whites notice that little drop from your appearance. If they don't, you smooth sailing, but they be looking, are you all the way white? Because it look like you might have a little drop of something else. What you got in you? I ain't got nothing.
Good morning. Remember when Black people were like, oh, don't touch affirmative action. It doesn't just impact Black people. Remember, laws that impacted Black people trickled into impacting other communities of color. And affirmative action was one of them. Remember when we were talking about that last year? And then they gutted affirmative action on behalf of those who are from a community of color but chose to side with white supremacy because they felt like since they weren't Black, it wasn't going to impact them the same way. Remember that? Post-affirmative action, Asian American families are more stressed than ever about college admissions. There are communities of color who went to the Supreme Court who decided that what impacted Black people would not impact them in the same way. And now they're in the messing around and finding out. Now, I've made several videos about the early Reconstruction period and how the Reconstruction amendments came to be and how they impact communities of color today. Because of the fight for Black people, other communities of color now benefit from those same amendments, those same laws that our ancestors fought for. And now your anti-blackness is kicking your ass. I'm just saying, at some point, people in this country, especially communities of color, are going to learn that when you decide that you are not like Black people or you are better than those Black people, understand that white supremacy doesn't care. Because there's going to always be a moment where they turn around and say, you are not white. You do not benefit. Just because you are not Black, we hate them over there. But just so you know, we hate you too. Understand, there is real anti-Blackness deeply rooted in this country. And when you decide as a person of color or a community of color that you want to disenfranchise Black people because the majority culture makes it okay to disenfranchise Black people, understand when they can no longer disenfranchise Black people, they come after you next.
Hello brothers and sisters, how are you doing? I'm hoping that you are doing great from wherever you're watching this video from. As you know, I'm your host and presenter, introduction artist. Now, have you ever invited somebody somewhere? Somebody who is a visitor, and then they start acting like they know everything. They start acting like you are the one who is on the wrong and they're the one who is on the right. Yet you are the one who discovered this and invited them and told them that this thing is for a collective and it can help all of us. Yes, that's a perfect scenario. That's a perfect case scenario of what is really happening with Asian Americans. So there's this video going around of this Asian American student who was not allowed to study in school because he was Asian. And this was a white school. And I just want you to remember about something. I just want you to remember about one thing. And this one thing is affirmative action. And I know probably you know the history of affirmative action and how it has always been for black people, you understand? So black people went on the streets. Black people fought for the civil rights movement. Black people even fought for the affirmative action. And the main goal of the affirmative action was for inclusivity, was to include all other marginalized groups and other less privileged groups. By then, women, right? So affirmative action came, and it means that black people could get schools. It means that Asians could get schools. Could get education. It means that Latinos could get education. So this is what happened. Since these Asian groups saw that black people benefited from the education, they disrupted it. You see the hate that a person has. They'd rather go down with you than amicably sharing what you have. So that's the perfect example of what I said. And we are seeing it happening. Asians decided that they are losing it. It's either they lose it because they don't want to see black people have it. And that's what happened. So, when that happened, right now, an Asian person is trying to go to school to get educated, but he cannot get it because he's an Asian. He learns one thing. Black people fought for the affirmative action, but right now it's not even helping him. It's not helping him because now they're saying that he's Asian, he's not white. See how crazy that is? Brothers and sisters, I want us to watch this video. I'll be back. I'll be giving my 2 cents in regards to this. So for the people who are watching me for the first time, I'm your host and Zeta Agent Stories. And I just want to say thank you for all those people who support my channel, those who subscribe, share, like, comment, send super thanks. I'm grateful, right? So let's watch the video. I'm going to be back with my thoughts and commentaries in regards to this.
All I'm saying is, stop messing around with black people, trying to disenfranchise us, knowing good and well you are next on the chopping block.
The Supreme Court has ruled that affirmative action is a violation of the 14th Amendment and therefore unconstitutional. The majority opinion was penned by Justice Roberts, and it goes through the judicial history of striking down race-based state actions. Starting with Brown v. Board of Education, which declared that the right to a public education must be made available to all on equal terms. And then they discussed ending segregation in busing, bathhouses, public beaches, golf courses, neighborhoods, and then marriage in Loving v. Virginia, because as the court said in this opinion, the 14th Amendment proscribes all invidious racial discriminations. Invidious, meaning unfair, unjust, unpleasant. And then the court said that any race-based decisions must survive strict scrutiny, meaning that the government has a compelling interest, and then the action is narrowly tailored to achieve that interest. In plain language, what the Supreme Court said is that being intentional about achieving diversity in our colleges and universities is offensive. Let me get more concrete than that. A medical school trying to ensure that more black doctors graduate, especially in the wake of high rates of black maternal and infant mortality, high rates of racist healthcare practices. They said that is as bad as not letting black people ride the same buses as white people. The Supreme Court has said that getting more black and brown teachers, lawyers, and psychologists in those fields is as bad as banning interracial marriage. They have compared getting minorities into college at higher rates, but still lower rates than white legacies, to segregation. They have said that the government does not have a compelling enough interest to right decades of wrongs by giving minority students a nudge in the lobby when everybody else is already at the penthouse. As a matter of fact, this opinion stressed that no matter how compelling affirmative action might be, it's dangerous. They used that word, dangerous, to describe ensuring that minorities are educated. The court said that 20 years later, no end of affirmative action is in sight, but rather than acknowledge that as an indication of the long road ahead to undo decades of racial injustice, the court determined that affirmative action is invidious. I'm a black lawyer. Fewer than 5% of lawyers in this country are black. White men are overwhelmingly represented as the people who make the laws that govern your rights, your liberty, your lives. And white women, I want you to pay attention, because you were actually the group most benefited by affirmative action. Last year, they took away your right to bodily autonomy too. You're affected too. And these white male lawmakers want you to be as uneducated, barefoot, and pregnant as the black and brown women next to you. Lack of diversity hurts all of us. And the Supreme Court's decision today will only hurt us more. The Supreme Court has ruled that affirmative action is a violation of the 14th Amendment and therefore unconstitutional.
If you are one of the many Asian people excited about this news because you think that it'll increase your chances of getting into Harvard, surprise, surprise, you just played yourself. You just helped to make education more pay to win. You think that your high grades and your immigration story are enough to get you in? I'm sorry, but at that level, everybody has a traumatic story to tell in their essay. Everybody has fantastic grades. And now it's about things that are going to be a lot more covert. Things like culture fit, things like personality, which a lot of Asian applicants end up scoring very low on. And so you're going to find out that you're not losing your spot because a underperforming black or brown student got in before you did. You will lose your spot to somebody who is related to a Hollywood celebrity, somebody whose uncle donated $2 million to the football stadium, somebody who is on the water polo team or the football team. You're going to discover that racism is just going to become more and more covert. So, congratulations.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm still pissed about those Asian Americans who helped that white man get rid of affirmative action. And it didn't even benefit us in the end. Unsurprisingly. So I need Asian Americans to remember that none of this was ever built for us. The lawsuit that ended affirmative action was not started by Asian Americans. It was led by Edward Bloom, a white conservative activist who has spent years just trying to dismantle civil rights protections because that's the type of person he is. He created Students for Fair Admissions and specifically recruited Asian American plaintiffs to frame this narrative as Harvard discriminates against Asians, but this was never about helping us. It was about using us, as always. About using us to attack policies designed to create equity and level the playing field. Now, you have probably seen a lot of people saying that affirmative action lowers the bar. Oh, DEI also lowers the bar. They're not the same thing, but people think they are. That is so misleading, and it's rooted in anti-blackness. Also, are we noticing the percentage of white people admitted and the overwhelmingly white legacy admissions at these institutions is something that specifically never gets touched in this conversation? Why is that? Is it clicking? So here's some facts from the case. So Asian students did have the highest GPAs and test scores, but got rated lower on personal qualities by the admissions officers. And for identical profiles, Asian applicants had a 25% chance of getting in, while black applicants had a 95% chance. And that stat gets weaponized to imply that black students are less qualified. But affirmative action isn't lowering the standard. It's about addressing systemic inequities caused by racist policies like housing discrimination, segregated schools, and the wealth gap, etc. This is classic model minority propaganda portraying Asian Americans as proof that racism is over to justify attacking other communities. That is exactly why they ended the immigration ban against Asians in the US and then only allowed in high-achieving Asians from Asia, scientists, doctors, etc., to come to the US so that they could use us to prove that they weren't racist to black people during the Cold War. I need you to pay attention to historical context about how this has all gone down. History is rhyming. It's the same thing. Here's the thing. I want to say that 69% of Asian Americans actually support affirmative action, and advocacy groups like Chinese for Affirmative Action and CIRAC fought to keep it. The loudest anti-affirmative action voices do not represent all of the Asian community. They do represent a narrative designed to divide us, though. And for Asian Americans, especially young Asian Americans, I need you to hear me. Even though many in our community do not align with the model minority nonsense, I can attest to that being true, the ones who do are often the ones that get the most visibility because playing that role perpetuates white supremacy. And at the end of the day, we have to be real about all of this. None of this was ever for us anyways. This country literally had laws banning us from being here. We have always been seen as outsiders. We have only ever been used as a tool, a wedge to uphold white supremacy, and then they will scapegoat us the second they need to. That has always happened in times of sickness, war, and a loss of jobs. And it is on us to disrupt that role, to stop aligning with anti-blackness, and to refuse to be used as puppets for systems that were never built for us anyway. It is imperative that we, as Asian Americans, learn our history, learn how we've been used, understand it, and choose solidarity. Because if we're not fighting these systems together, we are always on the chopping block. Remember how they treated us during COVID. Until next time, y'all.
Asian Americans who are celebrating the SCOTUS decision against affirmative action, we are not better than other BIPOC. We are not. So the model minority myth, Google that if you haven't already, like extensively. I know a lot of you have lucrative careers, have academic success, and that's why you think you're better, but what you're missing is a complete understanding of the structural inequities in place that keep other BIPOC down, that don't affect us in that same way. In fact, we're being used very often to suppress other people, to oppress other BIPOC, right? I mean, just look at redlining. That in itself has huge, huge consequences on generational wealth. We're not as affected by such, okay? I mean, look at how schools are funded based on this, So, if you're celebrating the SCOTUS decision thinking it's more just and it's more fair, you literally do not know better. And the sad thing is, so many of us act like we're so much smarter than other BIPOC. We're engineers, we're doctors, and we're lawyers, and we work hard, we pull ourselves up by the bootstraps and blah, 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 blah. But you fail to use critical thinking. You fail to, look into all the...
Some of y'all just learned the hard way. You were not the competition. A lot of people really thought getting rid of affirmative action was going to give them more opportunities. If you move more black people out of the way, suddenly you the next person in line. No, that's not how this works. What you fail to understand is this. Black Americans weren't just in the race. We were the ones fighting to make sure that the race was fair in the first place. That wasn't competition. That was infrastructure. It's like seeing somebody hold a ladder steady and you kick it thinking you about to climb faster. Now the ladder gone and everybody on the ground. And here's the part that really stings. You thought removing black people would make all this easier. All it did was show you they weren't holding you back. They just weren't planning to let you in either. So I want to ask y'all, do you think this was a miscalculation by people who wanted to get rid of this? And now they're waking up to realizing who was actually on their side? Because I know I don't think folks are waking up at all. And if anything, they're still confused about how come I didn't get in?
Well, would you look at this? In 2018, the DOJ sided with Asian American students in affirmative action suit against Harvard University. But you know what they were really against? They were against affirmative action because it was discrimination to them. Well, they got what they wanted. The Supreme Court gutted affirmative action, effectively ending race-conscious admissions. And then I wake up this morning to breaking news about a Google engineer that was rejected by 16 colleges, hired by Google, but rejected by 16 colleges, that uses AI to sue universities for racial discrimination. Listen to me now. Asian Americans have been used to make the case against affirmative action. Used because it only was a matter of time until they realized that affirmative action actually benefited them, and that, in fact, they should have been allies with the people who supported affirmative action. Instead, they were out there, not all of them, some of them were out there picketing, referencing Martin Luther King Jr. to share that they had a dream and they wanted no more racial stereotyping. They wanted us to understand that discrimination in the name of diversity is wrong, and a meritocracy is what's best. Now that this is making headlines all over again, especially these type of headlines, one would think that, oh my God, he's using AI to sue. This is not just about AI, y'all. This is about affirmative action, the affirmative action that was picketed against, that people only thought benefited Black people, that truly benefited everyone. Now the chickens have come home to roost. Here's my point. I have deep love for my Asian American brothers and sisters. I have found great allyship and joy working with them. And I didn't see or feel any of this type of rhetoric in my experiences working with my Asian American brothers and sisters. For my Asian American brothers and sisters who understood that affirmative action was something that benefited everyone, not just Black people, I want to give a special shout out to y'all. And for those of you who are just getting to the bandwagon of the fact that affirmative action actually benefited everyone, I'm going to need to see y'all outside with the same exact energy. Because to be quite frank, discrimination against one is discrimination against all.
A week or so ago, I made a video about how the attendance rate for incoming Asian American freshmen had declined at Yale since affirmative action was overturned. And now we're getting more schools, okay? In that video, I said how Asian Americans were suing colleges and suing to get affirmative action overturned. They were all on Twitter saying that they didn't get into schools because the spot was given to a Black person because of affirmative action, not even realizing that they benefit from affirmative action. And look here, now they want to sue because they don't understand why they're not getting into Yale, Princeton, Duke, and all of that. And this is the same group of people who sued Harvard to end affirmative action. They're so in denial. They are so freaking in denial. I don't know what is so hard to grasp that you all were benefiting from affirmative action. These schools were allocating a certain number of spots to ensure that they were, having a diverse campus and making sure Asian Americans could get in, even if their test scores weren't as good as the Black person who also applied, who might have even submitted their application before you. You're not getting in because you're not the smartest. Simple. But go ahead and sue. I want them to sue. I want them to waste their money, end up having to pay the lawyer fees of Yale, Princeton, Duke, and Harvard, just to find out that the reason why they didn't get in is because they weren't the smartest, that there was other people more qualified than them. Because clearly it's not clicking. Clearly it's not clicking. You thought it was affirmative action, but it was actually you. And just in case you didn't see my last video, the stats for Yale showed that even with affirmative action ending, the attendance rate for incoming Black freshmen did not decline at all. So we didn't need affirmative action. So good luck to them in that lawsuit.
So I saw this and it made me really upset, albeit it is Fox News, so take it with a grain of salt. He says he would have gotten into one of his dream schools if it wasn't for these meddling Negroes. He applied to MIT, Caltech, Princeton, Harvard, Carnegie Mellon, and UC Berkeley, and he was rejected by all of them. I was scared of getting backlash on social media for raising awareness about unfair admission, for fighting for what I think is a really important issue. So he goes to the Students for Fair Admissions, sketchy. He said, I gave them my test scores, and then they must have ran the model on that. I'm not sure where they ran that on. And they told me I had a 20% chance of getting accepted to Harvard as an Asian American and a 95% chance as an African American. Mind you, these are the rates of admission at Harvard. And he's right here, 27.9% Asian, 15.2% African American. Oh, I forgot, California banned affirmative action in the 90s. But I don't think he realizes that he's also a minority, that he also benefits from affirmative action. But mind you, all of these Ivy League schools make up like less than 5% of African American people, but somehow it's their fault he couldn't get into these schools. It's crazy how he blames the Black kids, but not the legacy kids, or the kids that have rich parents that give money to the schools. And not to mention, Berkeley has primarily Asian students. Not to mention, a few years ago, there was a big scandal involving parents bribing school officials to get their below average kids into the schools. But yes, let's blame it on affirmative action. And let's not mention that near perfect scores don't cut it anymore. You can have perfect scores and still not get in. It doesn't equal to automatic acceptance into these big Ivy League schools, because everybody who's getting into these schools either have the same grades as you or better grades than you. If you're lacking in extracurricular activities, creativity, and other aspects, then you're not gonna get in. Obviously, there's anti-Asian racism in admissions, but to blame Black people for the reason why you're not getting into these schools is incredibly ridiculous. He's from Florida, and UC schools prioritize California students. Whenever somebody gets rejected from one of their dream schools, they get on social media, they go to Fox News, they go to some racist news place, and they blame black people for it every single time, because y'all don't really believe that black people belong in these schools. Because when you get in, you start to moan and bitch about affirmative action and how people below standards are getting in, when these admissions, these kids applying to these schools have perfect SAT scores and perfect GPAs, just like you. Now it takes more than a perfect score to get into these schools, to get even viewed or even interview. You gotta be a diamond in the rough these days to get into any of these schools. Either you are a legacy, you are wealthy, you are an athlete, or you have like an amazing story for you to get in. Maybe your essay wasn't good because you have a perfect score in the math, but not in the writing section. So maybe that could have been it. Got denied by a bunch of white institutions, but somehow you blame black people for that, as if we're in charge of them. All right.
Hello brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel. I'm hoping that you are doing great. From wherever you're watching this video again, as you know, I'm your host and presenter Agent Stories. So this is what is really happening, and this is what people need to know. You see, when you hate somebody, it's like digging your own pit. And Asians today, a perfect example is what this Asian man went through. It's a perfect example of digging your own grave, because some things that people were in the back did, thinking that it could never affect the coming generations, but it did. It did affect the generation, because right now he cannot get educated. Our ancestors fought for everyone, and yet this small group decided to eradicate our efforts. Congratulations, you played yourself, and now everyone else has to suffer because of you. I'm talking about hate. You see, hate is a bad thing. You might take it as a small thing. Hate is like digging your own grave, because you are missing a lot than you're gaining when you're hating. And you are gaining a lot when you don't hate than when you hate. And this is what Asian Americans are getting to learn. This is what Asian Americans are getting to understand. And brothers and sisters, they are learning it the hard way. It has to happen that way for them to understand. For them to understand not to repeat or not to do the same thing to other group of people. Right? I have a dream too. Is beyond offensive. Oh well. They FA, and now they are better not asking black Americans to support any of this unless they're going to fix it. Black people try to find the solution, a collective solution for everyone. But all this group of people, because of their greed and hate, they decided that they cannot help see black people get educated. So they destroyed affirmative action, and it destroyed it for everyone. Yep, that's what happened. Everyone. You Asians played yourselves by getting rid of affirmative actions to hurt black Americans. As a black American, I really don't give a damn about Asians, and the fact that they are being discriminated against serves you right. Yeah, who is karma? Karma knocks at your door. I don't have any sympathy for Asians. The Asians got affirmative actions overturned for college admissions for black Americans. They thought they were gonna get all extra slots, but all they did was give more slots to white people. It didn't benefit Asians at all. That's why I don't be in solidarity with Asians, because they fought to overturn something that black Americans fought for a reason. Something for us that we earned in this country and stripped off us. Just like the DEI affected a lot of people of color, white women, we need to be aware that just like they are trying to suppress the black vote, they may be next. You hear constantly from particular white women that women shouldn't be allowed to vote. Lions don't follow sheep. They, like Latinos, are learning this the hard way. Black people built this nation and fought for every right all Americans and immigrants have. We were just eating popcorns as the dominoes fall. Is this a newer decision about affirmative action? I feel like I'm missing something. As there been a new ruling, the attorney which spoke, I didn't know what she was discussing. So, whatever you do, that's just a lesson. When you dig something, when you dig a hole to sink someone, or when you think that you can do something bad to a person, majority of the time always stands that you are prone to sink with them. There are amicable ways of doing things. You cannot be aggressive and think that it's gonna be moving well for you. And this is what Asian Americans learned. They went aggressively for black people, thinking that sinking the ships of black people will make black people not sail. But they learned that they invited other pirates. They invited other pirates that were against them. So in short, the people that could have supported them, they sank their ships. And they sank black ships. And even in real life, when you do something thinking that you are going to hurt somebody, 90% of the time, it also hurts you. It also hurts you, and it gets back to you. That's what's up. That's what I'm trying to say. So brothers and sisters, moral lesson of this video is, if you dig a hole to sink somebody, 90% of the time you're the one who's going to be in that hole. So brothers and sisters, please let me know what you all think about this video. As you know, I'm your host and presenter Generic Stories, but until then, let me see you in my next video. Peace, love, and harmony. Salute.